This is Ethan, and I'm here with Dave, and together we are Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 7-inch.
On this week's episode, we interview Mr. Lawrence. You may recognize him as the voice of Plankton on Spongebob Squarepants, but did you know he also illustrated the Food album cover?
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
It's a podcast about Weird Al.
It's Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
Seriously, the whole podcast is about Weird Al.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
You don't have to listen, but we're glad you are.
Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast.
We are very excited to welcome someone who, you may know as the voice of Plankton on SpongeBob or Filburt on Rocko's Modern Life, but really most known for, and what Dave and I really care about the most, he is the artist behind the Food album compilation cover art. Please welcome Mr. Lawrence.
Hello. How are you guys? I'm reading off cue cards. I wrote it all down. Don't worry. I've got all the answers.
We are so excited to talk to you.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks for having me.
You know, I think it's safe to say Dave and I are both big fans of your work. And as I mentioned, the thing that we're biggest fans of is the Food album cover art that you did for Weird Al.
The thing I'm most known for, yes. Strangely, if you go to any record store or any other place I've been, particularly in Canada, any place I've been in Canada, it's that album's there. I mean, every time, if there's still a record store that exists, they still have always a copy of that one, probably because it's a compilation album.
Right.
It's easy to, it's like a, if you don't know who Weird Al is, here you go. Here's the best of, a quick, glance for you, that one. But so I'm glad that it's still out there because it's the only illustration I've ever really done. It's the only album cover for sure that I've ever done.
Oh, wow.
But it definitely might be the only illustration I ever got actually paid for because I just never went into that side of things. I was always in animation, so this was just one of those things that I was in the right place at the right time.
That's amazing. There's a lot of people. It's said that Al was not a huge fan of having to do the Food album. It was forced upon him. But I personally, growing up, a kid of the '90s, this was a great album. Before there was iTunes or a way to get all of Al's music. Until I became a super fan and had every single album, this was a great way for me to hear a lot of songs as a kid. So I've always had a very special place in my heart for the Food album.
Oh, that's great. Well, it was, if I go back a little bit, I could tell you in the 90s, it was about probably 93, 94. I think that's when I met Al and we started kind of working together. He was looking for guys for his Saturday morning show he was trying to put together. And Jerry Beck, the animation historian who I met while I was on Ren and Stimpy back at Spumco. So it's all these things all combined. Jerry happened to see me, saw my work that was separate from Ren and Stimpy. He just happened to see things I was trying to kind of get together as pitches for shows, to sell TV shows. And he liked what he saw, and he happened to be friends with Weird Al. And at the time, he, mentioned to him about me. And so I went and met with him and his manager at the time and showed them all my stuff, wherever I was working on at that time, which was lots of storyboards and presentation cell artwork, to sell the projects. And so we hit it off, Al and I, and we kind of started hanging out. I guess it was, we'd get together once or twice a week and go to barbecue Thai on over on where is that? That's over on Barham Boulevard, and we'd get together every so often and talk about. I would just go to his place, or he'd come over to my apartment in Burbank, and we'd talk about projects. He wanted to do other projects, so we had a movie project we were working on together for a while.
Wow.
And some TV commercials. Yeah, there was a bunch of stuff we were trying to do at that time, and he just at that time, believe it or not, he was sort of, I think it's easier. It might be easier for him to get projects going now than it was then, because he was sort of like still doing his albums and everything, but it wasn't the easiest thing. After UHF came out, I don't think it was as easy for him to get, but they wanted him to do, because UHF didn't do bad at all. It did, it did good, and everybody liked, it was pretty much, fans thought it was great, and it was one of those underground, cult almost movies that everybody sort of grew on everybody. Everybody saw it eventually on cable and said, "Oh, this is funny." But at the time, it was, it was harder for him to get his next movie going, and so we were trying to work on that. And then it led to that. This is around the time I got on Rocko's Modern Life, just at the beginning of that starting, and so that all happened. And then we were kind of like, by the time this album thing came up, we had been hanging out for a while, for at least a couple of years, if not a few. And so he called me one day. I think it was on a Saturday morning, and he was exasperated, and he said, he's like this to me. He goes, "Doug, I got to ask you a favor." And I was like, "Yeah." And I said, "What's the matter?" And he says, "The record company is insisting I do this. It's part of my contract. I have to do a compilation album." And he says, "And I really, really, really don't want to do that. I told them that. I don't like compilation albums. I don't want it." He said, "So my idea is you do the cover," and he said, "and then I won't hate it when I look at it." And so I go, "Okay." I said, "Yeah, of course." I said, "I do anyway." Because, and they'll pay you, they'll make an offer, just, get what you want out of it. He said, "And I have the final say in it. They can't decide." He said, "So basically you just show me some ideas you want to do." And he says, and show it to me. So I did. I had one idea I really wanted to do. So I just made a little mock-up of it, a quick sketch, a little bit bigger than, just to show quickly. I did a rough. And I faxed it to him through a fax machine we had in those days. And he sent a thing back saying, it just had a heart. He said, "I love it. Go," or something like that. So I love it. Great. Do it. Something like that. So I then spent the next weekend, I think, one day or two, I mapped it all out and just kind of did a pencil sketch. And then the next day, it took me probably a day or two just looking at it many, many times over and over with watercolors and just painting it in with watercolors. And then it was, sort of done. And I just went to, I just finished it. So it was like probably one of the only illustration I've ever done, and there was no art editor to tell me you got to change this or anything. Al already had resigned to, whatever Doug does, we're doing, that's what it is. So they sent it in, and everybody said great, and I never, they paid me for it, and I was able to take the original. I made a bunch of copies at the time, some high-end copies then, that I still have. I actually have a framed copy of that one in my house.
Wow.
And so they had to keep the original, but they paid me, and I actually can't remember what they paid me for it. But it wasn't a lot, but it wasn't nothing either, because I was a kid. So it was sort of, for just one illustration, I thought that's pretty great. But I see it all the time, and people reference it all the time, and people bring it up. So it's kind of a nice little thing to have in my stuff. It comes up every so. I didn't know you did that album cover. It comes up every so often, and that's fun. It's really nice that people still know what that is. And like I said, most people who do illustrations, most of that stuff you don't see it again. They do it. It's in a magazine, and then that magazine folds, and you're done. But this one this one illustration I did, for some reason, is still gets used, and that's great. I'm really happy with it. I was proud of it when I did it, and I still like it when I look at it. I still think it's I think I could do better now, but I'm impressed sometimes when I look at it, that the use of the watercolor on it, which I really like. So I think I think I got better that day doing it, because I knew it had to be, I was staring at all of Weird Al's other covers, and Al was just showing me and saying, yeah, these, because he had sent me, when this happened, the company sent me a box of all his albums. So they just went, here you go, here's the whole collection. So I got all his albums. And then I still have a pile of DVDs and cassettes of the Food album that they had sent me then, just because I never gave them out. I just have them.
Yeah.
So they're still sitting there. And here's the other trivia, and this sucks so hard. I was so mad. Right when that album came out, it was like within the month where they had all stopped making LPs. So I just missed having an LP of the Food album with the big cover. Yeah, and I was really I was pissed. It was one of those times when I was so excited that I was going to get an album, an old album, and it just wasn't. It was, like the albums I grew up with, and instead I got, instead we got the CD, which was fine, but it's that one where I'm just like, they just stopped doing it, and so it was right on the cusp of that. So I don't know if maybe now they've, I know they do nostalgic, people are into LPs again, so maybe someone will make one. So if anybody hears this,
yeah, that'd be so cool.
I would like an LP of the Food album.
I mean, I guess the only,
it's not just for the cover,
the only thing that is going to work against us on that is Al's dislike of the compilation album,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But how cool! Yeah. I would personally love a vinyl of the Food album, TV album, all of them would be so great.
Yeah. Me too. If anything, like I said, and you can also just the album, but be able to see the artwork bigger, and it'd be fun. It was just a great one to have. But
sure, I mean, yeah, absolutely. I love the artwork too, and there's so much detail on it. I'd love to see it blown up as a vinyl, as an LP or as a poster. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I definitely channeling and or ripping off Mad Magazine. So I was trying to do Jack Davis and Will Elder. All mixed together.
Yeah,
so
the belch and just the style is just, it's so Mad Magazine iconic, and it's so great.
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks. I love doing that.
How big was the actual drawing when you submitted it?
The drawing was like a let's see. It was on a piece of watercolor paper, like a thick watercolor paper, and I just drew onto that. So I guess it was like 10 by 14, something like that.
Okay, cool.
10.5 by 4. It was kind of almost animation paper size, which is 10.5 by 14.5. But I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it was thing, but I think it's pretty much the size of the one I have on my wall here. I'll look at it. Let's see. Yeah, it's about that. Man, it's like a 10 by 12. I think that's what I'm looking at here.
I would love to know what happened to the original. What they did. Is it somewhere?
It was in a. Yeah, well, Scotty, I think it was called Scotty Records, right?
Scotty Brothers Records, yes.
Yeah, it still was in somebody's house, in Burbank. And so I went over to the guy who was, going to take it, and he said, okay. And I said, are you going to send that to the publishers now? And he says, well, I'm going to have it scanned, which is something, a photographic scan from at a photo place. And then he said, and I said, oh, okay. And he says, and then we'll whatever and get back to you. So it was a couple of weeks later. I realized I think it didn't occur to me that I wasn't going to get the painting back at first, or I forgot. And so then I called up the guy from Scotty Records at his house over in Burbank there, and I said, hey, you're not going to? Can I have it back? And they said, no, we got to keep that. And I said, all right, well, can I at least borrow it and make some high end copies for myself? So sure. So he tells me to come over, and it's just in a drawer. He just had it. He just had it in a drawer with other, promotional stuff. He goes, "That's where That's where it is. It's right there, safe and sound."
Oh man,
great. So I really wanted to some night just sneak in there, just break a window, go in there and take it, but I didn't. So I had a good enough copy, and like I said, I still have my copies. And now, if you look it up, you can get a good copy you can get a good digital copy of it anyway off the internet.
Oh, really? I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, but yeah, I think that's mostly what I remember. I don't know if there was anything else that happened with that. It's kind of a nice little story, that just I kind of just was a Band-Aid for Al, so he didn't have to stare at a crappy cover or a thing that he just didn't, wasn't on board with.
Yeah.
So it was fun. It was good. And then we actually even toyed for a while. We did talk about him maybe making a suit that looked like the creature on the cover.
Oh,
that he would have and use that and maybe have running around the stage at his concerts. But we never actually got. We talked about it, but it never. We talked about a lot of stuff that we never did. So, but because we were both, as we both are kind of stuck in our, I don't want to say stuck, but we're kind of in a career where something's going on, and then you want to do something else, and then you keep getting pulled back to your, what you were doing, so we had some fun trying to figure out things, and it was always just loony, we just liked loony a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Al and I loved the Abram Zucker and Zucker, the Airplane movie, and Mel Brooks and Monty Python. So we had so much to pull from. We both of us knew all those movies that from those guys, and so we were speaking the same language that way. So it was fun.
Is there truth to the rumor that this might be obvious, but the image of the Food album cover depicts the record company picking Al clean by forcing him? Is that just a happy accident, or was that an intention?
It's more of a happy accident because Al didn't say, "Hey, attack the record company," and I wasn't thinking attack the record company. I was thinking Al doesn't like this album.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right.
What could I do? And I remember, I think I called him at one point, or it might have been on that phone call. I can't remember because I was, sometimes things just pop out of your head, in the moment. But I'm not sure if I called him later. But I said to him, "Hey, I'm thinking about you, like your skeleton on a silver platter with an apple in your mouth, about to be eaten by a creature." And I think before I got the sentence done, he goes, "I love it." He goes, "That's it. That's it. Don't change it."
Oh, so great.
So it was really like a funny, moment, like where I just went, "I'm doing that." He goes, "That's it." And then I think I might have said I'm going for a Mad Magazine type cover. And he was already a massive fan of, Jack Davis had already done one of his covers, which was also daunting. I'm like, Jack Davis did a cover for Al. Like, God, what's my business? What business do I have doing a cover? What, Jack Davis already did one, So that was I think that it made me think really hard about what I wanted to do for it. So that's what I'm thinking now. I must have called him at a later time and said, "Here's what I think I'm going to do." So I wanted to make a creature and do something I hadn't seen on his other album covers, something a little more surreal. And so it just worked out where he had the power to run it, to make them run it, as long as it didn't have anything obscene in it, which it didn't. So it was easy to just say, "Here, this is it," But yeah, geez.
Does this creature have a name or a species, or is it just like a grotesque alien?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know if it's even an alien. I know he's got stalks and the ears are on the stalks.
Right.
I just saw it. I kind of was thinking. I think I was thinking of the Muppets. I think I was kind of thinking of the monsters from the Muppets. The fuzzy, kind of horned creatures that walk around. I think
Mm-hmm.
that was probably what was in my head, and I just wanted to make something that I hadn't seen before. So I tried to I drew a few heads of the creature it had to be a creature with a big mouth, and then I thought, what if the ears were, because I couldn't figure out where to put the ears and not make it look like a guy, and I didn't want to make him fuzzy. I wanted him to look like a skin. So I don't know, it just led to stalks, ears on stalks. Sometimes you just gotta put the ears on the stalks.
That's right. Words to live by.
Yeah, why not? One of those silly ideas that just looked right. Just looked funny and looked funny. That's the main point.
Can you tell us anything about the film you were writing with Al, or any of those projects that never came to fruition?
I guess. I mean, they're not really anything. I could tell you for the most part. I mean, I can't get into, obviously we don't have time to go into massive detail here, but the thing I wanted to do was Al wanted to not be Al in the next movie he made. He says, I don't want my hair, I don't want my mustache. And so I said, oh, so like when you did the I Love Lucy thing. And he says, yeah. I don't want to. He says, where no one, he was playing Ricky, and you almost couldn't tell it was him because his hair was slicked back, and he had no facial hair, and no glasses. And so he says, yeah, I want to be this other guy. So I had a story I was working on, so I brought it, and we started talking about it, and we really liked it. It was kind of a spoof of Citizen Kane, is what we were going to do. Which was about a guy. It was sort of like Citizen Kane if the main character was also the spokesperson. Was the main character, instead of being a business tycoon, this was a character that built up a company based on the world's worst tasting soft drink. That the pitchman, who's the guy who runs the company, is such a good salesman that everyone drinks it, but everyone hates it. So that's what it was about. And he played the spokesperson. He was going to play the spokesperson, which was going to have animated. We were going to have animated commercials, but then there was going to be commercials where he was in a suit playing this character. And so it was going to be it's going to be one of those epics, ridiculous, just a ridiculous epic. Kind of a movie of a guy who starts off at the bottom and works his way up to becoming, the head of this big corporation and huge, and then go down a downward spiral in a Howard Hughes kind of way.
Right.
So it kind of would have been a hoot. We were having fun. I was having fun drawing it. I still have things from it. I still have artwork from it, and we tried to sell it for a while. We were out there going to pitch meetings for a couple of years, I think, and it would have been great. It's still a good idea for a movie. So
I love it. I hope we see it someday.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? It's always possible. I'm still working on things, so it's always possible that could reemerge at some point.
I think you've covered all my questions on the food album.
Oh, but, yeah. There's only so much. It was such a short little piece of me and Al working together that it was, I kind of did it mostly alone. So it was, one of those quick little things that you do that's like a blip, and you forget all about it, and then all of a sudden people start asking you about it. You're like, oh, yeah, I remember that. So,
yeah, and I think it's kind of news. I'm glad that you mentioned that you sound like you really got very little input from Al on this script. He basically said go for it, and you did your own thing, which is amazing.
Yeah, well, he was always we liked each other's work, and so we were just sort of he understood, and it's not like he didn't talk about what it was that I was gonna do, but once he saw me putting it together, he saw that I was actually thinking about it really hard and taking my time. I wasn't just throwing something together fast and chucking it out there. I wanted to make something cool. I wanted to make something I'd be proud of because I knew it would be an album cover. So it was sort of like, ooh, I got to make something I like looking at, too. So at the time, that was the height of my skills. So the best I could do then was that. And I was, I like I said, while I did do it alone, like I said, it wouldn't have been happening at all if Al wasn't gracious in passing that gig along to me.
Sure, and I know he really can respect the artist because he's done several things like that. More recently with his animated music videos that he's done, he basically gives them like an idea, and he says, you're the artist, you go for it, and he might give him a few tips here and there, but he really
he's
respects.
Been like that.
Yeah.
Once he likes the person and gets their style of humor, he trusts them, and that's why it's fun to work with him.
Okay. And just one more question about the food album.
Sure.
Unrelated to what you've done, and what is your favorite song on the food album?
My favorite song? Jeez. Well, I guess it would have to be "Eat It," just because it was that really spoke to me as a kid. That was like the one I remember really hitting me a certain way. Yeah, because parents are always telling you to eat when you don't want to, and and that's part of that. That always felt like a kid anthem to me. You eat it. That's what I say. Eat it. You eat it. And of course we all grew up with, at that time, Michael Jackson was just this magical being from space that came down to entertain us, and he came along with that. So that was like one of the first things I remember going, wow, that's I'd seen the Michael's video, Jackson's video, so many times by the time I saw Eat It that you couldn't not laugh out loud at that right away, because no one had really been imitating it and making it look exactly like the video that you saw before. So that was such a nice little revelation, in comedy, and it was noticed by me, right, and everybody else too. But at the time, I just remember that sticking with me. Eat It.
Yeah, you and I have that connection too, where Eat It is what kind of got us into Al's music, and I think it's for people who did not grow up in the mid '80s. I don't think you can explain to them just how popular Michael Jackson was. He was bigger than Elvis maybe even was at his time. He was everywhere. So try to explain that to somebody who did not grow up in that time, and they're like, I can't understand it.
No, you'd hear that Michael Jackson was going to make another video, and then you'd be, oh my God, that's coming out soon. Everybody would be getting really excited knowing that there's going to be that. And then, like I said, later people became excited knowing that, Al was going to parody one of their favorite songs. So that also became part of it. So.
Yeah, definitely. And you'd be outside playing, and somebody would say, Michael Jackson's on MTV, and everyone would stop and run inside to watch the video.
Absolutely, yeah. No, when Thriller came out, I remember there was a big, like, we all they were talking about it on MTV like it was like it was some royal wedding or something. It was just like, at the time, it just was something that dominated all of a sudden the news. Kind of one of the first times I remember that happening, where the news was talking about Michael Jackson's Thriller.
Right.
So we all knew, and we were sitting there, we were all ready. The whole family was sitting there waiting for it to come on. I remember us walking back and forth going, is it on yet? Is it on? They're still talking about it. It's not on yet. And then they premiere it, and, we watched it, whatever. They played it the rest of the day, and I think we watched it the rest of the day. I think we watched it, every time they aired it, we were sitting there wanting to see it again. It was just so much fun.
I know we're running out of time. I got to ask a SpongeBob.
Yeah, what else do you guys want to talk about?
This little show called SpongeBob Squarepants. You play a little character, quite literally.
Nobody watches that.
No, I got to ask. Plankton, of course, is arguably the best character on the show.
Of course.
Easily.
I've always wanted to know, and I don't know if there's a real answer to this. In the F is for Friends song, Plankton sings "No," and it's for "No for Survivors" when you, and then he gets cut off. What is the rest of that line?
I've done that. I've done the rest of that line live. Really? And when we sang it, there was a whole group of us, and I realized as we were saying, let's sing the fun song, and we're going through it. And I realized as we were singing that we were going to keep singing beyond the point that I would normally, where he's going to cut me off. He wasn't going to cut me off. We were just going to keep singing because we were just singing, sitting there. And we're like, oh, and I realized that as we were approaching that line, oh no, I don't have anything else to say. So within, I guess, 2 minutes sitting there answering questions at Comic-Con. This is at Comic-Con. And it just all of a sudden fell into place. Oh, that rhymes. Okay, I'm saying that. And so it just came out. And Jill Talley, who plays, Karen, Plankton's computer wife, was sitting next to me. And she didn't have anything in her mouth, but she spit out something. So I'm not sure what it was, but she laughed. She was so shocked by the end because everybody knows I get cut off there,
right?
And so at least the group knew, and so they were not expecting to hear the rest of the lyrics are ta-da. N is for no. So I'll do it as Plankton. N is for no survivors when you bury their heads in mud. That's the rest of it.
Oh, I love it. Would have never expected that.
It rhymed, and it came out. And so I've been saying it ever since. I've been so happy when I could continue. And now when we've done it live and Tom interrupts me, I don't let him interrupt me until I finish singing.
Okay.
So I'll go, when you, and he'll start to talk, and I'll like put my hand on his mic, and I'll finish.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. Oh, great. What a great line. What a great thing for you to pick on. So cool. Great question. Love it.
Thank you. And I guess I just have to say, like, as I was preparing for this interview, I was thinking about, you're Plankton, you were Filburt, you did the food album, like 3 like very important things in my childhood you had a hand in. So I thought that was just really interesting, that you've been part of my life for so long, and so I thank you for that.
Oh, that's nice. I appreciate hearing that. It's always crazy when I hear it, because I still think of myself as being, just a kid watching cartoons. I don't see myself as having done things, but when I hear that, it just makes me think like, oh well, that's good. If inspiration can be passed around, I'm always happy to do it if I can.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I definitely my favorite 2 characters on SpongeBob are probably Plankton and Larry the Lobster as well.
Oh. I like to. Yeah, he's not. People joke about it all the time. They're always trying to do more stuff with Larry, and I'm always trying to do less stuff with Larry. Just because he's not necessarily my favorite character, because he's.
Oh, okay.
He's just, but not in a way where I hate him or anything. Just in a way where he's a jock, so I have trouble relating to him sometimes. Like, I don't know where that's coming from. I was always on the receiving end of the jocks, not a
right,
jock,
right.
So it was so he's always a character I wish someone else, but at the time it was they just needed somebody to play it that for the first time he appeared, and we hadn't stunt casted, and there wasn't anybody available, so I just took the part, and I just didn't think it was going to turn into anything else. We've got there's so many characters that you run across that you think, well, probably won't do that one again, but we've done Larry since then many times, so I like him. His longevity has made me like him. That's the best way to say it.
Okay. And kind of
he's
Plankton.
a big guy. What's that?
Oh no, go ahead.
I just said he's a big guy. That's all.
Okay, thank you for that.
He's flop lying. Anyway.
No, I was just
Sorry, go ahead.
This is all good. I was going to say, Plankton kind of started off, from what I understand, as kind of a one-off character as well, correct? And you kind of
I think that,
yeah.
In fact, the plan was with Steve and me and Derek Dryman in the room there. This is a character that Steve had put in his Bible for the show, who looked a lot different then. But it was always the same kind of the thing going with that character, and he wanted me to. I know that from the beginning, I had auditioned for SpongeBob the pilot. Steve and I were already good buddies from Rocko, and he wanted me to come in, and he wasn't sure who I was going to play. I think he thought I was going to play Squidward. I think he went in saying, I think Squidward, you're going to be good for Squidward. And I went, okay, and I came in with the Plankton voice as a joke. I said, I want to play SpongeBob. And I started, he said, I'm ready, Gary. I'm ready. And I started doing the whole thing, and everyone's, laughing, and Steve goes, yeah, he goes, that would be so great and avant-garde if we did that, if I took that main character and made it that voice. Like, we actually stood there contemplating it for a second, but he knew, and we all knew that it was not going to be the main character of the show talking like that. But he said, but you know what? He goes, to me, that's Plankton. What you're doing is Plankton. And I auditioned for Squidward, and I didn't get it. So he goes, yeah, you'll be Plankton. I said, oh, right, when the series goes? Right, thanks. Right, yeah, when it goes to series, right, I'll be Plankton. Great, that'll be fine. So and then of course it went, and then it came in, and Steve's like, okay, so you're Plankton, and I said, great, I'll do that, and I'll start writing stories for him, and I was the first, I guess, writer. I was a storyboard guy, but Steve wanted me to he wanted me to be the liaison between the storyboard artist and the writing group, because I'm somebody who knew how to draw and knew how to make films. So he was kind of thinking of me that way. It's just that once I got into writing, it became so much that I didn't go back and board for the show. But I did have to audition like 3 or 4 times for Plankton, because the network had decided around the time the Plankton show was going to come out that just before we recorded, that they wanted to do a stunt casting. They wanted to get some celebrity to play it, since it was only going to be a character that was going to be on maybe once a season, which is what we were thinking originally.
Okay.
And maybe twice, maybe, but this, how long can you do this? That's basically what we're saying. You can't have him going after what are we doing? The Roadrunner? We can't get the Roadrunner. And I was like, yeah, I guess not. You're right. So what happened is I went through this big, long process where I had to keep going up in front of network brass and doing the voice. I had to do some recordings as him. I was actually writing the sides for myself, and then I go down to the recording studio and record it, and then and then send it off to New York from Burbank. So it was sort of like this waiting game to get them. So finally, everybody from New York came over to see this pitch over at Nickelodeon. And it was the first Plankton show, called Plankton, exclamation point. And I stood there while they pitched it, which is a weird thing to do this. I've never seen anybody else do it this way. It was just this one time. They're pitching the show, and every time Plankton talked, I would talk. So they're pitching the whole rest of the thing, with gestures and their things, and explaining all the stuff and pointing to the drawings, like you do in a pitch. But then all of a sudden, I'm just this person on the sidelines, just total weirdo, standing there, going, "Yeah, it's my birthday," and so the good thing is that everybody laughed every time I talked. And so when the meeting was over, we all looked at the guys and we said, "He's Plankton," So that was the end of that. So I didn't have to worry about it from that point on. But because it's such a process for me to get that part, and I happen to be, also writing the show, it became a thing of me pushing to Steve Hillenburg that, we got to have more Plankton. I mean, this character's amazing. Did you hear the laughter? Oh my God, we got to do this character every chance we get. It was like me chasing him down. And so what happened eventually was he goes, well, see if you could write up some other stories and we'll see. So then I sat down and wrote like 10 stories for him in a row that were all, just basic like long paragraphs saying you could do this with him, you could do this with him. Here's how versatile this character could be. And having a computer wife, I said that gives him depth. I had this whole argument, for why we have to keep doing him. And it was sort of like, all right, well, maybe we'll do a couple a season. And then, luckily, the fans liked him enough, and we even liked him enough to keep using him. And now he's like, to me, he's like one of the, ensemble. He's just sometimes he's not even a villain in some of the shows. He's just part of the gang. So I'm very proud of that character, probably more than anything I've done. I know it's the thing I'm known for the most, but it's definitely one of the things I'm most proud of, because it wasn't easy to. Once we got it in and it locked in, then it was easy. But since then, it's been just an amazing thing and privilege to play this guy, and to write him and play him is even the thing that I, kind of can't wait to do. Sometimes what's he going to do? What am I going to do with him this week? That kind of thing. And so to play him is just that's so fun. That's nothing. Even when it's hard, that's fun. So even when it's hard getting all the timing right, or ADRing a show and getting it to sync perfectly like I was doing 2 days ago. Even that stuff is so much fun because you're getting to pretend you're this, this guy, this nut, this like little minuscule jerk who's trying to ruin everything. He just becomes, it's become something that, if you can imagine, it's something you think, oh, I'll do this and it'll be on for a year or two and then it'll be over with. The fact that this kept going and I'm still playing him, 20 years later is really weird and really, great, of course, career-wise, it's amazing. But it's not something I thought I'd be doing that for that long.
I think it almost kind of comes back to the food album, this kind of one-off drawing that, maybe didn't seem as significant at the time, but now it's, over 20 years later, people are still seeing it and still enjoying it. And it's kind of, that's like Plankton. It's like you wouldn't have expected that. But it's become this, like, it's such a important thing in pop culture.
Yeah. Like you said, it's kind of, I don't even know if it's humbling. It's just sort of, it feels weird because I know I did it, but to hear people talk about it is always, but I gotta say, it's great. It's a joy to hear people like it. So anything I do that people like, I'm always just not necessarily shocked, but I'm happy that it hit somebody the right way because I can relate to that from all the stuff I love to watch, and see. So.
As a final question, I would love to know,
Sure.
Do you have a favorite SpongeBob episode and do you have a favorite Rocko's Modern Life episode?
Ooh, that's good. Oh, yeah, and I should tell you, coming up, I guess it's going to be this summer, the Rocko's Modern Life movie, which I co-wrote with my old cohorts.
I cannot wait for that, by the way.
It's coming out. Yeah, it's really good. You're gonna dig it. It's really, really good. We're all really happy with it, and it took a while to get it out there finally, but it's it's coming and it's really funny. So yeah, definitely look for that and enjoy. I enjoyed watching it myself, and the Fatheads are back in it. So I'm
good.
glad to see them. Glad to see them for a second too. Got to do some layouts and drawings for that show, which I haven't really done drawings for a show in a while. So that was a new thing too. But yeah, be on the lookout for that.
And you have there's a live action SpongeBob this summer as well.
Yes, yeah, I just finished doing that. I wrote that, and I'm in it. Where you're going to see us, you're going to see everybody, on camera, in all our live action glory. We're all going to be there, so it's a nice little something weird. We wanted to do something weird for the birthday special. We said we got to do something. It can't just be sentimental. It's got to be weird and funny and crazy and so we got some things in here I think will kind of knock people's socks off. There's some wild scenes in this that are reminiscent of all the things, like we said, that we've grown up that we like, like Monty Python and Mel Brooks and those guys. It's kind of coming from that space.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Mixed. It's just so fun, and there's so many nice little. You're gonna spot a lot of cameos. There's a lot of guest stars in it and that kind of stuff. But it's just fun, and it took a while. It was hard to make. It was not an easy thing for animators to go and get in front of the cameras and you have to do something live action as extensive as that was. The stuff they do on the movies, they usually have other live action directors and people in there, making it. There's a lot going on with a movie. But we had a small production company with the director and the group that put the stuff together for for this birthday blowout show, and it was worth it. It was worth all the really, really cold mornings in Castaic and and the blowing winds over in San Pedro where we shot on the beach. It was super cold, and we had to get up way too early for humans, and it was just. But it was great, and we had fun, and eventually it's all worth it because I think people are gonna, I think this might be one of the most famous things we do, just because we get to be on camera, for the first time, and writing it was really fun. It's like super cool. but anyway, so that's not my favorite one. I keep going off the rails here talking to you guys. But my favorite show is one I just did for SpongeBob called My Leg, which was a show about just about Fred. And
are you the My Leg guy?
Yeah.
Oh,
okay.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, that's my favorite joke. That was the whole goal was how many times can we say my leg? That's how the whole show started, was how many times can I say my leg in an episode? And it just grew into a show about Fred falling in love, which
oh my God, I cannot wait to see that.
Yeah, I got to see that.
It's out there. I mean, if you look on Amazon, it's there already in the
Wow.
It's already on.
Oh, good.
So check that one out specifically. I don't think you'll be disappointed. So that's a really good one. There's many good ones. We've made so many great ones since. I mean, there's always been great ones on the show, but there's a new regime that's been there since season 10, and I think we've been making the most comedy centric of shows. We're getting very into the jokes and very into how can we top things, and how can we surprise you. And so My Leg's a good surprise, so check that one out. And then I guess Rocko, I have so many great things about all those shows. I love To Heck and Back because that was just a story I didn't think Nickelodeon was going to let us do. And then they did. I said, yeah, Heifer's going to choke to death almost. And he's going to, in his head, go to hell. And then, Rocco's going to be stuck in his stomach. And I was wondering, they're going to come back and say, oh, no, we can't do that.
Didn't they end up banning that or something?
What's that?
Didn't they end up banning it? Or
later. Later on, it was one of the ones that was banned. Yeah, that and I think, I can't remember the other one, but it was the one where Mrs. Bighead seduces Rocko. It was like a graduate joke, take off on the graduate. Right, and that was the other one. They took that one away. That was called Leapfrogs, originally called Horny Toads, but we did a lot of stuff that I wouldn't even attempt to put through the machine now. But back then we didn't know. We were just trying stuff, and they'd always go, no, guys, you can't do that. There's lots. I have tons of stories about DSMP, but I digress. I think that To Heck and Back was one of my favorites, and so was that Leapfrogs one. I don't know. There's the first one I did, Canned, the one where Rocco's trying to get a job. That's probably really close to close to me or close to my heart because it's the first show that's the first television directing I ever did.
Okay.
That's the first time I was a director. And so that is always going to be the special one to me. But I had so much fun making that show. That was that was comedy college for me, that show. So that's where I learned how to do everything. And luckily Joe Murray let me do everything. Let me get away with doing voices and everything else. It was just a great time and at the right time. Sparks were flying at that time in animation, so there was plenty to do. It was good. It is now too, but it was really new then. It was sort of like it hadn't been animation hadn't come back to television in a big way yet, and this was sort of it. Nickelodeon started that, so that was it was nice to be part of it when accidentally really, but I came out here wanting animation, and I guess I got it.
I would say.
Yeah. So, but other than that, it's been, like I said, to be able to continue to make stuff that I like is really hard because there's so many things I've been on that I don't connect with. And then it becomes harder for me to be, to do my best work, So I just lucked out that the show where I did my best work, some of my best work, is still on the air. So it's really still don't get it, but I'm very, very grateful for it.
What an amazing interview, Mr. Lawrence. Thank you so much for joining us today.
This is nothing but fun, guys. I thinking about this stuff is fun because I don't get a chance to. I'm so busy. I usually don't get a chance to think about these things. So it's great to go down memory lane with you. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, I feel like there's so much more we could talk to you about
Sure,
working
yeah.
on Mighty Magic Swords, about everything else you've done, and we also want to know if there's any other projects with Weird Al coming up. Maybe another album cover.
Oh, with me, no. No, we talk every so often. I'll say hello, and we say, but he's had kids since then, and we've all had other things going on, so we haven't tried to do anything. We when we see each other, we always talk about it. We always say, hey, maybe we'll do something, and but I think that initial time when we were ready to do something back then was sort of like, it just happens. You get ripe times to do things, and sometimes it just, because of the way Hollywood is, there's so many projects you want to do, but you only get to do really a couple of them usually, so it's me and him wasn't meant to be then, and so maybe, you never know. Like I said, if I can get any of my projects off the ground, I know Al wants to work on stuff with friends, and I know that if I asked him to come work on something or do songs or music, I know he would be there. So he we just know that if we need each other, we're there. and so maybe I'll have the right project someday to work with him.
That'd be wonderful. And maybe can we get Al on SpongeBob? Maybe he can be related to Plankton or something. I think that would be cool.
Yeah, I think I don't know if he was. I get the feeling he was, but like years ago. But
I don't think so.
But maybe that's probably not. Yeah, I should look into that. That's a good idea. I always like to hear new ideas.
Thanks again to Mr. Lawrence. What an awesome interview. So much good Weird Al info, SpongeBob info, Rocko's Modern Life info, just like all my favorite things in one interview.
What did you think about that proposed movie that him and Weird Al were doing?
I can't believe he told us that. I've never heard that before. It's such a great plot. I really hope that they make it one day.
Yeah, I think we need to make this a mission of Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast to find somebody to do that movie.
Well, I bet our listeners would support it. And speaking of our listeners, I want to thank them again for listening every week, tuning into our episodes, checking out our Centimeter episodes where Dave reviews these shows he saw in Florida. And the Centimeter episodes are going to keep on coming. We're going to record new ones as we see more shows. We're going to start seeing shows together. I'm going to see some on my own. Maybe we'll even get some fan reviews submitted.
Yeah, and if you have some comments for us or some reviews of the concerts that you want on the show, you can email them to frank@2000inch.com, or you can hit us up on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram @2000inch, and you can always reach us 2000inch.com.
So next week on episode 8-inch, we are going to be doing something pretty cool. We are going to determine together a definitive top 5 songs in order on the Dare to Be Stupid album. So I'm going to come in with my top 5, Dave's going to come up with his top 5, and we're going to battle it out and come up with the definitive top 5.
Yeah, you do not want to miss that. We also have a great comedian on, Elliot Chang. Oh, amazing, funny guy. Check him out on YouTube. He is hilarious.
He's so great. So check out Elliot Chang. Get accustomed to him before the episode. And then maybe if you even want to start listening to Dare to Be Stupid obsessively on repeat and figure out your top 5 and see how it compares to what Dave and I decide.
I always want to listen to Dare to Be Stupid on repeat.
I mean, that is pretty much how we've chosen to spend our lives, Dave.
And that was Dave and Ethan's 2000-inch Weird Al podcast, episode 7-inch.
And is for no survivors when you bury their heads in mud.